Okay, now that Ankur's gone, we can all be proper. Yeah. So before we begin, just I'd like to ask everyone in the audience, how many times have we used the word interesting whenever we've referred to anything related to art? Can we give a raise of hands? Yeah. Please stop doing that. It's the most vague and like the least passionate word to describe anything because as artists, we put in like a lot of technique, soul, effort, and all of that, and we do it over and over. So, I mean, as much as possible, find better adjectives and superlatives to describe photography, music, or paintings in general. So today, when we're talking of repetition in photography, we're primarily going to be discussing repetition of craft, which is slightly more technical. I don't know how many of y'all here are into photography or except that guy in the corner who's with the camera and here. Um, so yeah, before we begin, I mean, some of you here might know me. I'm Shoeb. I'm a fashion and fine art photographer, and those who don't know me will kind of get to know me now. Um, before we begin, I'd like to kind of take you all through very quickly as to what we're going to discuss in this. Um, it's just the way I approach photography technically, as well as what goes within when I'm kind of trying to think of a picture. So yeah, that's going to be it. Now, initially, we all begin shooting when we kind of see something pretty. It could be like a repetition in landscape or just like a baby smiling or anything like that. We start taking pretty pictures, and I think that's how everyone begins. But we got to stop that at one point because otherwise, you get into the cycle of just doing that, and you will never cultivate a visual language of your own. So that's something that kind of is very important to photography because eventually we all get hired for that. And now backtracking a little bit to how I got into photography. So chances are, if any of y'all came to Grand Hyatt in 2007-8, I must have served y'all coffee or said hi to you at the main gate. And I mean, back then I knew that I wasn't cut out for this, but I also didn't know what I wanted to do post that. So, and like by nature, I'm shy and introverted. So like talking to people and approaching people for work also didn't come naturally to me. So, I mean, I quit the hotel industry and then started working freelancing into events in Bombay. That's when I mean I had a lot of free time, and so this is the first picture that I've ever taken. It was shot on a 2 megapixel cell phone back in the day, and I mean I just kind of found it interesting because like the shadow of the cat that you see actually represents. I mean, it kind of looks like a beak of a crow, so it's like a cat trying to catch a crow. And this picture was shortlisted and selected in like a all India level photo exhibit, and I mean, it was one of those that got sold. So before I knew it, like people asked me to take photography seriously, and like I took it up without knowing what to do with a camera. And slowly now I had to kind of figure my way out, because great photography, like anything in art that we were discussing, is about problem solving. And the biggest problem for me was like it was very difficult for me to kind of approach people and shoot. um, so even when I was shooting street, I used to be at a distance and shoot whatever. But I knew very early that something that I wanted to shoot was people, portraiture, something that was of interest to me, and I had to find a way. So I started doing small shoots in order to like land up the big shoots. And I mean, a year down, I actually got the chance to work with a film director, um, and I think you'll see one of those images later. So yeah, I mean, the brief to me back then was simple. He was like, in movies, especially for posters, when we're designing, we primarily look for close-ups. So if possible, try and shoot faces. We don't want to see the whole scene. Just to kind of give you a gist of how movie stills are shot for those who don't know, it's basically once the director's done with the take, you get a chance to direct the actors to do repeat the same scene, and then you get your shot basically, which they might use for promotions and stuff. So we were shooting for this. So yeah, I mean, this is primarily what we're going to talk about, which I'll take you through. Um, yeah, I mean, I used this as the first image because I mean, this has just been shot 4 days ago, but I actually have come back to how I originally started, like my initial style of photography, which kept evolving over time. And I think after 7 years, just 4 days ago, is when I kind of felt that, I was actually in the process of trying to get back to how I started off, and it's very difficult to unlearn what you're doing and then get back. So we'll get back to this picture later. Um, but yeah, so basically, this image which you see in the center, I mean the poster, the one on the right is a making of image. You'll see that mustache come in later on. But that was shot in a room which was the size of this carpet. Okay, and nobody but the actor and the DOP were in that room. So and the door was open. So the only place that I could have to get the shot was like if I stood outside. Now, again, and there was no chance because we were running short on time, so I had to get some shot because like you have to have one shot each from whatever shots being done in a day. And again, there's some foregrounding that you see. Those are like the hands of the director. He was trying to basically instruct him about the scene, and I got that as my shot while he was doing it. But then when he did the official take, is when we got the same repeat shot. You can see like the expressions a little different, and then there's a fake mustache that's coming. Um, so yeah, I mean, up until now, I was still in that space where I had a very voyeuristic take on things. Like I was at a distance, trying to not interfere into their space and take it. So literally, like over a period of time, this kind of became like a stamp on whatever I was doing. I tried to make it work and look in a way that you couldn't tell that it was not directed. And then I wanted to actually assist a photographer who I met, uh, who saw my work, and then he was like, there's like a couple of things that I see in your pictures, which I can tell. One of them is chaos, and the other thing is grace. You know, and if you try and assist me, what will happen is you will start replicating my style of lighting and my style of photography. So he didn't let me assist him. He was like, you should go do your thing. But I mean, he also gave me one more advice, which was like, don't shoot anything you can't show your mother. So yeah, so I stuck to a couple of those, and I kept doing my thing, and over a period of time, I just wanted to figure out what he meant by grace, because like grace by definition is just like elegance and movement, but like why would he say that? And when you're just 2 years down, you don't really uh, sort of understand why someone's saying that about you, and especially someone who knows much more than you. And so I kept shooting similar stuff, and one day I just laid out my work, and just to see what it is like. And all the portraits that were there had one thing in common, which was a certain moment that was there, which according to him was grace. So I was trying to like decode that moment, and that moment actually to me is the moment between intention and action. So every time, and it's been that till date. So every time I'm shooting something, uh, this is what I look for in that image. So most often, like my final selection will have an image which, according to me, is a representation of that. So I'll take you to a couple of those shots, which is what brings me to this shot. So you can see both the shots. So this was before me having instructed him, and then one that's the shot that kind of is like the final shot where he's looking away. But I prefer this because this has that moment that I'm looking at. And this again, so I was commissioned to shoot his sister's wedding. And this was on the morning of the wedding. Yeah, he wasn't willing to shoot because it was early morning. But like I had to shoot because, like, you know, it just comes as second nature. Like you like something, you shoot it. I mean, and the thing that's something I saw in hotels, and I think that's something that's also stuck with me is like there's two kinds of chefs, right? Those that go by measure and those that go by taste. And I kind of always am more drawn to things that I like. So if I like something, I'll just probably shoot that. So I mean, even till date, I must be the most non-technical photographer out there, but like I try and get the moment, and I think that's what makes all of us different. So yeah. Anyways, coming back to this shot, he instructed me not to take this shot, so I just kept the camera on this thing, and there was music playing in the room. Um, and I had a sync sound blimp, which is again like a thing used to silence the shutter. So yeah, I just kept that, and I kept firing while he was playing. I kept firing shutters and then at one point I just checked the camera, and I knew I got my shot. And then I asked him, okay, now can we do a few shots? So then he agreed, and we did a few shots which he didn't like, but the camera was in his hands because he was checking it. So he went back. He was just like going back, and then he saw the series of these images, and he happened to like this image. Now it's put up in his living room. But uh, coming back to the fact that, it's about getting that moment right. And I mean, as an audience, it's very difficult to decode when you're watching a photographer's work. But this is something that, I mean, it must be varying for other photographers because like everyone's process is different, everyone's like stamp is different. Uh, but like if you see my work over a period of time, you'll find this happening. Again, this is another image. This is perhaps my first ever studio shoot. I got a call from her team saying, they wanted to do a PR shoot. And this was just like, I think, not even, I wasn't even a year down in photography when this thing came up. So I went on to YouTube and I saw a few tutorials as to how do you light up in a studio. How do you do a three light? I mean, generally when you're starting off, people try it out with one light, and I directly went on to a three light setup. And to my luck, it worked out, and we got a few good images. Again, this is another example of that moment that I was talking about, um, where it's something in between. This is in a very intimate space in her house. So this kind of portraiture is something that we'll get in later, because this is when I started shooting, uh, where I was actually directing people and models to look into the camera, because I mean, apparently this works better as per like the fashion industry scene. So yeah, I mean, then this was one of the images from my first ever exhibition. Exhibitions again is a very different process. It's something very personal. It's something I enjoy the most. And if you see other photographers' works, I think their personal work is what you should judge them by. Um, because I mean, it comes from a space which is deeply personal. For example, I'd actually lost a friend who'd committed suicide. So this was titled Finding Utopia, and we're trying to kind of I mean, this is again recreated, but a friend of mine who used to be a model back in the day. So again, this image is literally the literal translation of what I said, uh, the intention to action bit. This is a part of a series which I'd done. Then this was I think this was the third exhibition, Homecoming. I think 3 years ago, my parents moved back to Aurangabad. Even I work out of Aurangabad now, so I come in to Bombay whenever there's work. So this was like my father going back home. Um, and this was like the opening shot of the series. Also, this road that you see is the road that leads you into the city, connects you between two cities. So, and that truck you see has all our luggage that was going in from here to there. So, we used this as the opening shot of that series. Um, yeah, this again was for a fundraiser exhibition in Chennai for an NGO called Tribal Hearts. We shot this gypsy community that stays on the outskirts of Chennai. So, yeah, this shot that you see is again a very taken in a very voyeuristic way. I mean, this is a guy sleeping in a pile of filth, and I mean, it's shot through like the spokes of a handcart, if you can see, just to show wheel, which is kind of showing that life moves on. So there's just like subtext, a lot of subtext in personal stuff that you will see. This is again like I saw a sunboard which had this Pond's ad over there, and I kind of this is a stage shot again, where I got this girl to kind of stand here, and it's just challenging the idea of beauty as to what you think beauty is. And about this, I mean, we sold maximum copies of this picture in that exhibition. Yeah, again, now coming to treatment, style, and fashion. So when we're talking of repetition of craft, we're talking about how, as a photographer, you develop a style. It could be whether you're repeating a certain focal length. If you're shooting only close-ups, you keep doing that. You'll find certain photographers only using a distortion technique to shoot pictures. So yeah, a little bit about that, and cultivating a style. Now, style for every photographer is different, and it takes a while to kind of get to that. Like it took me, I think, 3 years to figure out that moment that we were talking about, and how I kept repeating it until I got bored and started to discover other things which I wasn't aware of, even though I should have. So yeah, I mean, most of my work is in the fashion and portraiture space. Now, this that you see, these are two separate campaigns. One is for this brand called Odd Giraffe, and the other is this brand called Baba Log, which is for kids. The brief was very simple. You just have to show them having fun, and they're doing their thing. Um, so again, these campaigns were a little bit in the initial stages, which is why you will see that I haven't really got the models to look into camera as such. They just happen to look in by chance. um, but and The more I was working in the fashion space, around photographers, in discussions, you would hear this thing that, oh, it's better if a model looks directly into camera because uh, it apparently holds the viewer's attention, and it helps, you know, sell the garment, whatever. Yeah, so this again is we shot a capsule for a designer here, and this is a very different lighting technique which I use quite often in my work, which you'll see repeated. It's just a very simple on-camera flash because again I'm self-taught, so I don't know much. Uh, these shots are of the same brand, but I'll go through them over and over. So when you're shooting with a certain brand, what and you don't know if this brand's gonna shoot with you again, right? You wish they would. Uh, so one of them is this brand called Garçon. They're into menswear, and I've shot like the last 5 years all their campaigns, and they want to do something different every year, But they want to repeat models, which again I go by because there's this is a part of the process that I like repeating subjects, and by that I don't mean repeating the same model over and over, but there's a certain look that I go by, uh, and I mean if that look is in the model, then it works, and it's not about the model being white or black. It's just a preference of that look that's there. Um, so yeah, I mean the one that you see is I think the third campaign. This is the first campaign, but they want to repeat the model, and I want to repeat that look, which is why we're going in for that. So a lot of work goes into this in terms of how do you match your style to the client's brief, or rather what they want to do. Like the one on the right is a spring summer collection, and the one on the left was autumn winter. So you kind of play with temperatures and all of that. I mean, it's a little bit more technical. Um, this again was for their next collection. These are again two very separate collections. Um, the one you see is all naturally lit. The one in the orange T-shirt is all naturally lit. Whereas this shot, even though it's a day shot, it was shot in the monsoon. That you see is water in the pool behind. Uh, but we wanted to make sure that it is. I mean, because they were putting it out as a spring summer lookbook, so I had to kind of use artificial lighting to get that slight orange tone onto the picture, on his cheeks. Yeah, this is their latest campaign again. Again, using a technique which is very simple. Most photographers here don't really use this. Again, it's something that you'll see press photographers using a lot, which is that big camera flash on camera flash on, and sort of. But there's a language that uh, is required to shoot fashion in that sense. So this was now because we had done very different kinds of shoot for the same brand. You can't repeat the same shoot over and over, right? Uh, so you got to pitch them an idea, and I pitched them this idea of you repeating this slide. I mean, doing this slide because we had never done it, um, and they kind of agreed. So yeah, just to kind of take y'all through how y'all can't repeat shoots over and over, because even though repetition is a part of the whole thing, uh, the client will never pay you again. So this again, like I said, it's about problem solving. um, I got a call from this actor saying he had to announce his pregnancy. So we kind of thought of how to go about it. I just had my camera with the flash, uh, and I had seen a few references in some magazine at one point, which was there in my head. So I just kind of got them to like put on this, and we shot this in like 10 minutes flat with no instructions at all, just a simple portrait with flash, and just treat it in black and white later on, and kind of making it look more editorialish than a cliched pregnancy shoot. So just a very different sort of approach to that. Now, this is something that I've started doing recently, which is when I was aware of, or rather got to know of this technique, which everybody I'm sure also knows. It's the most popular composition technique in photography. It's the rule of thirds, wherein you, I mean, for those that don't know, you just kind of break the image horizontally and vertically into thirds, and there's a square that forms in the center, and you place your subject anywhere in those four corners, and automatically the viewers naturally drawn to looking at that point. um, I didn't know of this until I just happened to um, Google it and check it after I heard a photographer using it very often. Um, and ever since, I haven't let gone of it. The thing is that a lot of people use this in everyday photography, but what I was trying to do over here is in a much wider landscape, and over time, because my photography had evolved, and now I was a little more confident of how to direct models and tell them that it's okay to look straight into camera and not look away and shoot. uh, I kind of now got into a little bit more of the storytelling space. This was for shot for a yoga collective based in Melbourne, and they happened to be in India, and they wanted to kind of do a shoot in Varanasi and show India and like a little bit of that space. Um, so yeah, I mean, these are few of those shots um, where if you actually notice, the model's head is exactly in that rule of thirds composition, and I mean, you'll see it quite often in the next few shots that I'm showing you. This, by the way, is shot on an iPhone 5s because we were not allowed to shoot. And yeah, and I just kept my camera in the bag, got my phone camera out, and we just took the shot. I mean, it looks much clearer on the laptop screen, but yeah, it is equally all right over there. And similarly, this is again a shot which is like it fits into the rule of thirds, and it's a very simple composition of the girl in the Ganga and with those seagulls behind. Yeah, this again was for a French brand called Azadi. Now this brand works with people like girls in particular who are who've been like a victim of human trafficking and stuff. So they work with them, and like the whole idea behind this shoot was to like the client was clear that they didn't want to use a model. uh, so we decided to spend a day doing recce in Hampi. The whole campaign was shot in Hampi, so we wanted to use a real person. So we went on to the hippie island, which is the other side of Hampi, and we were asking random people, random girls, as to if they'd like to shoot. And one of them agreed to give us a day, and I mean, the brief to me was that they wanted to show a girl, a foreigner specifically, in India, and just doing her thing, and I mean, they wanted to show that it's not as bad for a foreigner to kind of, or for any other girl to be in India if you let her be. Um, like for the second shot, if you see, we've used water, which again is like, if you know of the god of Poseidon, which is the god of sea. So we've used that as showing a context to showing independence. Um, and then again, yeah, so yeah, similar wider angle shots where you're trying to cultivate a color palette of reds, and at the same time telling a story. They weren't like really particular that they wanted a shot with cows. I don't know for what, but they did. And this was like close to sunset. This was the last shot, uh, and we didn't find any cows until sunset. This is like the last shot. Um, it's a little pixelated and grainy because, like, I mean, I had to bump up the ISO because we were falling short of light. And if you notice that corner, we suddenly had like these 8-10 cows come out of nowhere, and we just lucked out. This shot is pure luck. So we just got her to stand bang in the center, and we kind of got this shot. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of subtext that goes into uh, creating images. It's not just about creating, like, just taking a shot, because I mean, at the end of it, it means something to somebody. And like, we come to the most crucial part of my process, which is selection of images. you know uh, Ankur's laughing because we discussed this. So yeah, I mean, it's almost sacred to me in a way that I never. So the way I work is, I never let clients select any of the pictures. Like, any picture that you see on my website or Instagram or even in this presentation, is it's been my selection. Because I mean, if the client knew a good picture from a bad picture, they would be shooting the campaign, right? Yeah. So I never do so. And the way I work it is, I never tether my camera when I shoot, because then the minute you tether it, they're always on the laptop monitoring every. A good picture is a good picture, and a beautiful picture will be remembered as a beautiful picture, irrespective of the fact that a couple of pleats are here or there, because nobody pays that much attention really to it except the designer, in a way, because that's what matters to them. It's not about the picture in general. And I never let them sort of interfere in that at all. The way I work is, I will show them the images on the day of the shoot, and then I kind of do an initial selection, and then I give it a day. I sort of go back the next day and weed out further, and then there's a final select that generally kind of goes into, because at the end of it, it is like my name that's going out at the end of it. And I mean, you can't let anyone sort of take a hold of your voice, right? So that's something I think which to me is like a make or break situation when it comes to a shoot. Yeah, I mean, I'll leave you all with this quote that makes sense to me at all times. uh, if you all have any questions, just feel free to shoot. Cool. Thanks.